morning and welcome. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Hump Day Wednesday. I hope it finds you well. I know Arizona fans, we're all excited. The Diamondbacks upset the Phillies and are going to the World Series. Pretty shocking. We're excited about it. A little early. Got a lot of young guys, but I know me and my buddies, we're all big baseball fans. So we're excited about that. The Phoenix Suns made their the NBA started. They beat the Golden State Warriors yesterday. I think the Nuggets beat the Lakers too. So we always like that. Anytime anybody beats any team from LA, we're excited about that. So a good day for Arizona sports because the Cardinals didn't play. 800-951-0592. That is our toll-free number. You better use it. And I'll just say this. Use it before the ground invasion begins because it's coming. AllAmericanGold.com is the website. We have issues in the bond markets again today. The 10-year note, just in the last, say, 15, 20 minutes, took back off again, back above 490, staring down 5%. And this time, Jason, and this is kind of what we've been alluding to, we've got problems here, right, with the amount of debt, the high rates, all that stuff. But every other government, every other central bank has problems as well. And in Japan, Jason, this market is about to really lose control. Another major intervention, an unscheduled intervention from the Bank of Japan as they're trying to keep their bond yields down and trying to keep their currency from unraveling. People are starting to speculate, are we going to see a central bank meltdown from a major central bank? I mean, we haven't seen one of those in a very, very long time. This whole little orderly, in unison, everybody just prints debt that we know will never be paid back, but we'll pretend that it's okay. Is that possibly coming to an end? And, of course, wouldn't World War III just make a lot of sense all at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, the central banks are going to do everything they can to hold on to the power that they've gained over the centuries. So I don't know. I mean, I guess the central bank can collapse. It's just the only question really is, no matter what bank collapses, what replaces it? It doesn't matter which bank goes away, right, Joe? In the end, who's going to be able to delve out the currency and do the loans and put you in debt? And if one, let's just say if a central bank fails and then another one like the IMF or some other central bank comes in and takes that place, was anything ever accomplished in that situation? So to me, it's about the removal of the bank. If that bank is removed and that country or area of the world decides to run their own monetary system, then that's going to be something to look at, Joe, for sure.
Yeah, and it's interesting that Japan, the citizenry of Japan, something that we have really in modern time have never seen, are buying gold. And again, it makes sense. Rumors are circulating that the Chinese are doing more than just trying to stimulate their economy and selling U.S. treasuries to do it. Rumors are circulating that China has been dumping treasuries, and this is recent now. So in the last 45 days, the pace, and we kind of noted this here, the pace of gold buying from the Chinese has picked up. But now the amount of selling of U.S. debt has really escalated from the Chinese in the last 45 days. And now there's rumors speculating that China is once again really heavy into the gold markets here as they're viewing what's going on with the debt markets and what's going on with Russia, Ukraine, and now with Israel. as an opportunity to further weaken the U.S. dollar, Jason. It really is. There is a lot of things not Israel related, right? Because that's all anybody wants to talk about is what's going on in the Middle East. There's a lot of things happening, and unfortunately, they're not very nice. There's a reason why Jamie Dimon, when he was in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia yesterday, came out and essentially said, hey, if you're listening to what Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve, heck, if you're listening to what any of these central banks have to say, you're getting misled.
That's right, Joe. That's right. And, you know, if countries want to start eliminating the U.S. treasuries, it's going to cause, once again, the word that's going to be constantly said every day on this show, which is the biggest problem we have in America, is the inflation. And can you imagine if Japan started shelving all of their U.S. treasuries, Joe, selling them to cover all of their problems? Because, you know, if the citizens buying gold, well, that means, you know, where's the money going to come from, right? They have a lot of U.S. treasuries. Can you imagine if Japan eventually just throws down, it's like, oh, we're done. We're done. We need to get money from somewhere, and this is looking less valuable every day. You know, I think Japan will probably be one of those countries that's late to the window, and they hold a lot of treasuries, Joe.
Yeah, they're the largest holder of U.S. debt right now. Their currency, they've been trying to keep it below 150. It's 149.93. It's been between 149.90 and 149.98. The bond yields have spiked. We're going to talk about what they're trying to do and is it even possible? All of that and so much more coming up next. Eight 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour on this Wednesday. A quick look at the markets. We've got a mixed bag here. The Dow is up, pretty much Microsoft. Boeing, which missed earnings and said, oh, by the way, we're not going to be able to make as many planes as we told you. But somehow, I don't know, you know, I guess they knew more than we knew. Somehow, it wasn't as bad as some people thought, so Boeing's got a little bit of a bump. Microsoft, they beat everywhere. Apparently, people love Bill Gates. I know Bill Gates doesn't run Microsoft anymore, but you get my drift. Google, not good enough. Alphabet, not good enough. But the Dow up 60. The S&P's down 25. The NASDAQ down 160 points, and again, a lot of the earnings outside of Microsoft either weren't good enough or weren't good at all. The 10-year note, we're just watching here, 492. Again, this is another big jump up, and remember, Wednesdays and Thursdays is always when we've got to sell these longer date maturities, and we've been having a hard time. We've been having a hard time doing it, but we'll keep you posted. Crude oil, another one of these conflicting things. The non-government, the API, the non-government agency said big draws in crude, big draws in gasoline, big draw in distillant. The government came out this morning and said, no, that's wrong. We had a crude build, and gasoline, we didn't have a drawdown. But either way, oil's not going anywhere. Wait till the ground invasion starts. We'll see how bad it gets. But right now, oil's down about $1 at $83. Gold is dead flat. Now, I know if you go to Kitco in London, gold's up in London. But right now, gold $1,975, and I've got a feeling that we're probably near the bottom here. This 1970, if I'm right, and this ground war is going to start pretty. I think in the next week or so, we're going to see this really take off. The troops, U.S. troops in Iraq and in Syria have come under attack. There's been a couple of dozen wounded. Not to mention, you know what they don't tell you? How many contractors, right? I don't know that. I haven't gotten any details on that, but it just sure looks like things are shaping up. But all eyes are on Japan right now. Their 10-year note, 0.86. And you're like, 0.86? Why is it? That's bad? That is horrible for Japan. The Japanese central bank, for the 7th time now in the last 10 days or so, has had to intervene in their bond market to keep the yields from going above 1%. And at the same time, their currency, the Japanese yen, 149.91, and people are now starting to speculate that the Japanese central bank is going to lose control of their debt markets. We'll watch all of this play out, and I'll just say this. You know I've been telling you this. Get your damn money out of the bank. I can't be any more clear than that. If you have investments, you've got 401ks, you've got IRAs, call Joey. Make sure you have it out of banking institutions. Get it over to Northwestern Mutual. They're not a bank. That's going to be important in the future. And then, of course, being diversified. Obviously, gold and silver. But why refi? Up to 10.25% returns, fixed, not correlated to Wall Street. That is going to be very important in the future. Not correlated to Wall Street, not correlated to the central banks. And I'll just give you, Jamie Dimon said it all. The Fed and all the other central banks have been 100% wrong, and he doubts that they're going to be able to navigate what he thinks is coming in 2024. Check out why refi. Man, I tell you right now, I'd be definitely doing that, getting as much of my assets out of banks and out of Wall Street as possible. Check them out, investyrefy.com. That's the word invest, the letter Y, REFY.com, or call them at 888-YREFI-24. Remember, for them, though, you got to have a minimum of $50,000. But, Jason, all eyes on the Bank of Japan. They already have what we'll call unlimited quantitative easing program. The Bank of Japan really has been buying everything. The problem is it hasn't been enough. And all of a sudden, we're starting to have these interventions from the Bank of Japan above and beyond what they normally have been doing, which is unlimited, really quantitative easing, just in the last 30 days. Just in the last 30 days. Now, today makes 7 interventions. And you think about, you start doing the math, and we're getting to the point where twice a week now, the Japanese need to go into the debt market and save it. I mean, this is what we're talking about. This isn't, we're just going in there, we just want to help out a little bit, Jason. That's not what we're talking about. They are going in and saving the market, because believe me, the Japanese lose control of their currency. They lose control of the debt market. That is going to spread, and it is going to spread everywhere, and it's going to spread immediately. We talk about this all the time. Everything's fine until it isn't. And all of a sudden, Japan, Jason, the pace keeps quickening. The amount of intervention, the amount of money they need to spend, it just seems like none of it's enough.
Well, remember when that we saw the FOIA request, during the 2008 crash, and we were told the $5 trillion that was printed to save the banks, too big to fail. And then that FOIA request became, 10 years later after 2012, so last year, and they printed $29 trillion. And it didn't just go to the banks or the big banks, or it went to this country, this bank, that bank, and Japan. If I remember the numbers right from that piece that we listened to from Glenn Beck, it was 3.1 trillion to Japan. Right, so I think there's been a propping up of Japan for a while. They have the worst debt to GDP of any nation. So I think Japan has just kind of been sitting there. I think they gave up after the '87 crash, and then their markets went sideways, and I think they just became the serfs of the world economic system. It's like, well, if things go bad, give us some more, or else we'll take you down with us. I think that's kind of the position they're in, Joe. Does that seem kind of logical? I mean, that Japan hasn't really economically done anything really important since then.
Yeah, and and here you go. Crude oil just came screaming back. I think a lot of people digested the Department of Energy's report and smelled something, if you know what I'm saying. This is not a good situation. We talked in the past. If you guys have been listening to me, we talked during the financial crisis. And remember the pigs, right? Portugal, Ireland, right? Italy, Greece, Spain, right? The pigs. And now we know Italy already is like, hey, we're in trouble again. Japan is much bigger than that. Man, I mean, Japan, their debt market, you can take all of those, right? All of those pigs, add them up, and you don't get Japan. And their situation is significantly worse, right? Their debt to GDP, it's when you talk about the worst of the worst, they are it. And now there's a day of reckoning coming in all of these markets, because here's the realities. It's just simple. Sooner or later, the market eventually goes, wait a minute. You've got how much debt? And you're going to pay how much interest? Right? We already know Japan's a sham, because look at they're paying 0.86. Who the heck would buy a Japanese debt instrument getting 0.86 when there's inflation everywhere? And this is the problem. The problem is they're worried that it'll actually get fairly valued. Because if it actually got fairly valued, what are we talking about? A yen at 300? 400? 500? Right? A 10-year, we laugh, we worry about, we don't know, is 5% too much? 6, 7%? We're like, oh my gosh, can you imagine what the interest payments would be in Japan? I actually don't even think they can get to 2% before it would bankrupt them literally overnight. And Jason, this is something like I said, and Jamie Dimon talked about it yesterday. People got to wake up. Because we all want to live in our little bubble. Oh, well, that's Japan. That's not us. Oh, yeah, that's Ukraine, or that's Israel, or, well, Italy. Who cares, right? They got good pizza, but we don't care. You better start caring. You better start caring. Because guess what? J.P. Morgan is a global bank. Bank of America is a global bank. Citigroup is a global bank. Wells Fargo is a global bank. They are global banks. And believe me when I tell you, it is going to matter. And it's going to matter to the tune. And again, we know the pattern. Right? I'm just highlighting the pattern. Boom and bust, boom and bust, boom and bust. And what's the pattern in that boom and bust? It'd be great if the boom was always bigger and the bust was always less. Wouldn't that be great? You'd be like, hey, that's working. The booms are always bigger and the busts are always less. I'd be like, hey, man, that's a great economic plan. But what is it really? What has really happened? Well, the booms are always bigger. But the bust are always bigger. Remember the last bust? The word bailout? You had Jim Cramer freaking out on TV. Wall Street won't open on Monday. Remember? Then they changed all the rules. All of them. Right? Too big to fail. Man, made you feel real good, didn't it? Made you feel good. Right? You know, it's cold and you're shivering, and they started a fire and they put a blanket on you and gave you some cocoa with some marshmallows. Oh, yeah. Oh, you felt so good. And you thought, well, see, yeah, they're looking out for me. Too big to fail has been taken care of. How did they take care of it? Wait, they made it bigger? Well, if they were too big to fail the last time, how does making them bigger fix it? It didn't. And instead now, no bailouts are coming for the banks. It's called bail-ins. Why do you think the billionaires keep taking their money out of J.P. Morgan? Why do you think they keep taking their money out of B of A and Wells Fargo and Citi? They're all losing deposits, hundreds of millions and billions of dollars every single month. Wake up. $800-951-0592. Gold's now powering higher here, up about $4 here at 1980. I think it's going to get a lot hotter than that. Breaking news. Now, this is out of the Wall Street Journal, saying that the ground invasion that Israel and U.S. officials are both telling the Wall Street Journal the ground invasion could start as early as later this week. So it's Wednesday. What is later this week? I don't know, Friday, Saturday. But here's the big piece of this. Israel is saying that the reason for the delay is so that the United States can get ready. They say that the Pentagon is scrambling to deploy dozens of air defense systems in the region, including for U.S. troops serving in Iraq, Syria, Kuwait, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. So obviously the United States is now of the opinion this war is going to escalate. These anti-air defense systems are not there yet. So that is what they're saying, that they're waiting for, that they're going to be there any day now. The Pentagon has confirmed that U.S. troops have come under fire in Iraq. U.S. troops have come under fire in Syria, where several dozen have been injured. But Jason, this is the first time I've seen a timeline. Right? We keep hearing, well, it's delayed. Today, at least the Wall Street Journal is saying that Israel is waiting on the United States to get these air defense systems in place, and then I guess we'll see all systems go. John Kirby used "This is war." This is combat. It's bloody. It's ugly. And it's going to be messy. So, again, I'm just telling you right now, you want to be buying your gold before this thing kicks off. Bank of America immediately just came out and said oil at 150 to 250, depending on the escalation. Let's just hope that's not true, because that would be absolutely disastrous right now. And I got the right to change this. Gold goes up $100. These specials are off. But I've got $20 gold pieces, $2,195, and I've got silver rounds. I've got buffalo silver rounds. I've got dragon silver rounds, whatever you want. Silver rounds at 530, 20 ounces of silver rounds at 530, $20 gold pieces, $2,195 at 800-951-0592. And I guess, Jason, obviously, the Wall Street Journal saying, hey, the ground invasion probably later this week after these air defense systems get put in place.
Yeah, I don't believe any of the news stories come out. So if I'm the way my mind is going, Joe, I think they have what they need to defend whatever they need over there. I don't. What I think it is this is gamesmanship. This is whack-a-mole. If you tell the enemy that, well, we're not ready, and we're not going to be ready until the end of this week, you try to get some of those guys to come out of their tunnels and their houses so you can take them out, because the type of warfare they're talking about is tunnel warfare and house-to-house warfare. It's hard work. And if they can take out a few guys that stick their heads out in the next couple of days because they think there's an opportunity to launch a rocket or two, that makes the job a little easier. That's how I see it, Joe. I have no evidence to back it up. But come on, they're not ready to protect the troops in Syria. Those troops have been there for 6-7 years. Actually, the last 3 years for sure. 3 to 6 years. You don't have U.S. troops in Syria and not have them protected. Give me a break. They're just trying to get the enemy to stick their head out.
I would say this. I think they're running low, right? I mean, if all these rockets are being launched at them, right, they probably just need more. That would be something where, right, hey, we got to – obviously, when it starts, I think they're anticipating a huge amount of rockets to be fired everywhere, and they got to make sure – the last thing you want to do is say, well – a bunch of troops got blown up because we ran out of, air defense missiles. I mean, that wouldn't look so good.
No, I agree. I just think when the ground war starts, there's not going to be a lot of Palestinian rockets being shot the way of the Israel soldiers. I just see it. It's it's just like when we went into Iraq and when we go into Afghanistan. It's this long, drawn out, bloody affair, and we'll see. The point you're making though is right. It will happen. They're telling the world that they're going to go do it, and when it does happen, economic markets will react heavily to it. Anytime I hear the government releasing information about what they're doing, come on, whatever.
No speaker. No speaker of the House. They've got another. I don't even know which guy it is now. They've nominated so many. Some other guy that has no chance of winning. Right? I mean, all of this kind of coming. You remember, we're less than 3 weeks from a government shutdown. Right? On top of the fact that obviously, here's what I think: we're going to get the Speaker of the House thing solved as soon as this ground war starts. Because we're going to need a whole lot more money than the $10 billion that they, got to remember, only $10 billion of the 105 was for Israel. We're going to need a whole lot more than that at a time when the debt markets are completely saturated. And now we have a central bank in the Bank of Japan that is under enormous pressure. When you have central banks getting into the markets, once a week, that's bad. Twice a week, it's a big problem. And again, like I said, I think there's just too many things. What is going to be the spark that lights the match? And it could be so many different things right now. Again, I think we're getting set up here. Right? I don't think this is happening on accident. I don't think the Ukraine-Russia war was an accident. I don't think what's going on in Israel was an accident. I think this is my opinion. I think this thing's going to get real. And I think Bank of America is probably right. Right? Somewhere between 150 and 250 barrel of oil. We've got debt problems, money problems, central bank problems, all in time for a digital currency. Oh, speaking of digital currency, I'll tell you what the Chinese did for the very first time. That's coming up next. $9510592. Gold's up 6 now, 1981, almost 1982. Silver getting ready to fight back into positive territory again, right at that $23 level. Crude oil has now gone higher. The NASDAQ and S&P losses getting worse. The Dow, on the strength of Microsoft, is still up about 75 points right now. $20 gold liberties, $2,195. You want, if you're going to be buying gold, buy it now before the escalation. The Wall Street Journal saying that they're just waiting now on air defense systems, and it wasn't one thing. They said Iraq and Syria. I'm like, okay. But no, they said Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, right? They're putting them everywhere, which kind of tells you what is most likely going to happen. And then we've got silver rounds. We got buffalo rounds. We got the lunar dragon rounds, whatever they're, just cool-looking silver rounds, 20 ounces of silver in every roll at $530. And for the very first time ever, the Chinese have settled its first cross-border oil deal in the digital renminbi, or the digital yuan, has been used for the very first time. The Shanghai Petroleum Natural Gas Exchange announced that China bought 1 million barrels of crude on October the 19th. It was handled in digital yuan, a major step forward for the Chinese currency. And Jason, I guess, you know what? I think this is just the sign to come here. This is where we're heading. This is what the powers that be are setting up for us, this next crash. Because, listen, we're not just talking about the U.S. going to have a crash. China's going to crash. Japan's going to crash, right? Europe's going to crash. All of these central banks, all of this debt, and the solution, I think, is going to be very, very simple. They're all going to go digital. We're going to lose a lot of freedom. Unfortunately, a lot of people are going to lose a lot of wealth. And by the way, they did this deal with the United Arab Emirates. So this wasn't they did the deal with the Russians. Nope. They did it with the United Arab Emirates, Jason. I think that's an important distinction to make as well.
Yes, and well, let's see what happens. So you bring up all these really good points, Joe, of what is happening at the moment, and then what that looks like. And it's always the most important part is we got to sit back and wait, because as the listeners of the show know, there's not a lot we can do about these things you're talking about, Joe. There's not a lot you can do. So as Joe said earlier, well, why do you need to start listening? Why do you need to understand this stuff? Why do you need to learn this? Well, you need to know what you can do, right, Joe? It's all about what you, the listener, can do about these things that we talk about, which you can't make the decisions for the government or these banks or these stock mogul company types like Jamie Dimon. You can't decide what they're going to decide. You can't change markets with the assets they have. But you can buy these $20 liberties, Joe. You can buy gold. You can buy silver. You can put some stuff away and save it, so that when things get a little rocky in your personal economic situation, that you're going to be ready for it, Joe. And no more important, I think, in the time that I've been here than this year. I think we're on the precipice of something big, and I think unfortunately we haven't really talked about this too much. I think this is one of those things that just starts going, and it just doesn't stop. Everyone's always, well, what happens at the end? What happens at the end of this thing? This might be one of those things, Joe, that just goes on year after year after year after year. And most people will say, well, gosh, back in 2020, back in 2021, back in 2023, if I just would have loaded up, I'd be in a much better position today, because this is not going to be, it's going to end in a few months or in 2025. Mm-hmm. I really think this is going to be a year by year by year and a continually grinding situation for those that are not prepared.
Well, the European Union, with the help of Citigroup, has now launched its first digital bond offering. It was rated, almost AAA, AA plus, AAA minus. The 100 million 3-year note digitally it was the first digital bond issuance under English law. So there you have it, Jason. The renminbi, the first cross-border trade in buying a commodity. Well, not to be outdone, Citigroup, hey, we just did the first Euro digital bond offering under English law. And again, is there any more doubt about what's coming? The only thing they don't get, the listeners aren't getting, they're coming for your money. Period. Because guess what? When anytime there's a reset, there's a price to be paid. Right? There's debts that need to be paid. They need to have the illusion of solvency. And if a bank like the Bank of Japan goes under, what do you think Citigroup and B of A and Wells Fargo and JP Morgan, right? They all go under. And this is kind of the big problem with it all. But they set it up nicely, because I think that's the plan. Right? Hey, it's going to be fine. Everyone's going to take a big hit. The standard of living is going to suffer. A lot of people that didn't prepare get wiped out. But then guess what? The digital currency can be a savior for us all. 800-951-0592. Final segment coming up. $800-951-0592. Gold's up $10 to $13, depending on where you look here. 1985, 1986. Silver at $23.03. The $20 Liberty gold pieces. These are the old ones. You know why we like old gold? It's the most private way to own gold. I mean, it's pretty simple. Heck, it's the most private way to own just about anything anymore. You can buy it, sell it, trade it. Don't have to give out your Social Security number. Don't have to worry about a 1099. $2,195 you're saving. That's a $30 savings. And unfortunately, since the show's been going on, gold's gone up $10. Right? So probably more like a $40, $50 savings. And then the silver rounds. I got Buffalo rounds. I got Lunar Dragon rounds. $530 at 800-951-0592, or just go to allamericgold.com and order online if you'd like. Or like I said, call the 800 number, tell the girls you want the special. But you know what? Is this coincidence? Last week, Exxon, $60 billion to buy Pioneer Oil. The other day, Chevron, $53 billion to buy Hess Oil. Do you think they know something about where the price of oil is going to go, right? I thought we were going green, and yet Chevron and Exxon are launching some of the biggest deal in oil history. And then all of a sudden, right after these deals get done, Bank of America comes out and says oil between $150 and $250, Jason.
I think oil going above $200 a barrel with certain geopolitical actions taking place, and then on top of that, the inflation and economic deterioration is very likely, Joe. Especially so since the last 2 or 3 years, every time you turn on the TV and a Russian oil line was blown up, or some exporting of oil was blown up in Ukraine, and Israel's shutting down oil in preparation for war. Certain areas are susceptible; they want to shut them down if they get blown up, or Joe Biden doesn't want to pump any oil. And how many times have we heard all this stuff for the last few years? constricting the supply and ability to use oil. So, I mean, that's what you do to make the price go up, right, Joe? So all the other stuff aside, not producing is a pretty big indication that you're going to have higher oil prices.
Well, I'm going to say this, and this is all happening all today. Goldman Sachs, which has been on record saying, listen, we got a 2 to 3 million barrel shortage. Where is it? Well, according to Goldman strategist Colin Bruce, made the statement today that the latest oil-linked note, which he reminds readers that before the conflict in the Middle East, so this was before the conflict in the Middle East, saying that the high-frequency global inventory tracker is not showing the large crude bills based on the supply and demand estimates. And now Goldman Sachs is starting to wonder if there's a problem with the data. Go figure. I'm sure it's fine, right, Jason? Don't worry. I'm sure everything's A-okay.
I don't think things are A-okay. That's why we buy gold and silver. If things were A-okay, gold would be the money still, right, Joe?
Well, according to their inventory tracker, the world lost 10 million barrels of oil, but the market said they didn't. So I don't know who's right, who's wrong. It doesn't matter if you own gold. We'll be back right after the break.